Well, Cain, thank you for taking the time to talk. How have you been?
Good on yourself.
Good, man. I'm curious. I know I've heard a little bit of your backstory. I watched your video on ITR boxing, and I'm curious to hear, maybe for some people that don't know what it's like growing up in Sacramento, what is it like? What has it been like growing up in Sacramento?
Well, I didn't really understand my situation until I started traveling for two national tournaments, and I seen other places how they are, and I'm like, wow, there's more outside of Sac. I'm so used to just like the ghetto and stuff. And then I see out there like, oh, we got this tournaments with everybody there, like trying to win this tournament. And I was just like, there's more to life than just Sac. That's when I realized. I was like, what, 14, 13?
Hmm. So it was
Yeah.
kind of just status quo. Or would you say, the violence of some of the things that you saw kind of became like the norm?
Yeah, it used to become normal to me, and I was just like, and then when I got out the city, I was just like, damn, there's more than just this, than just you know.
Hmm. When I think I read that you found boxing at 6 years old. How did you find the sport of boxing, and what drew you to it?
Well, really, my uncle, how do you say it? My mom's sister,
Hmm.
her husband, my uncle is he was training he had a little boxing gym in his garage, so I was just like, oh, we just and then. But since I was like 5, my dad's been telling me that his grandpa used to box, my aunt used to box, and my dad used to box. So it's like it's really just in my blood, to be honest. I just since I was little, I just like to fight.
When did it first enter your mind that, what, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life? This is it.
It was when I was about like really early, like 10.
Hmm.
When I was like 8, like 6, 7, 8, 9, I just liked everything. It's like I like wrapping my own hands when I used to fight when I was like 8 years old. Before the fights, I used to wrap my own hands, and like I just liked everything about it until like my dad told me, "Oh, you can make lots of money with this and that," and I was like, "Oh, like yeah." But I was just in there for like fun. I used like fighting, but then it got really in my head when I was like 10 to 14, like the whole process, because that process was like I'm just not throwing punches no more. Like I gotta stay faint. I gotta watch my defense more. That's when I was like, okay. It really hit me when I went to my first national when I was around 14. I was like, yeah, this is it for sure.
You're still a young guy. I mean, are you 19 years old right now?
Yeah, I'm 19.
So what made you decide to turn professional when you did, rather than continuing with the amateur circuit?
Well, huh, well, ever since I started fighting, you know how amateur boxing is.
Hmm.
Fight to get the guy's hometown. It's a close fight. You're not gonna get the fight.
Hmm.
In a national tournament, it's like I feel like I've dominated, just straight dominated, and they'll go the other way, and I'm like, damn, me, my family, my team, we really like sacrifice a lot of things to be here just to get it done like that. And it never, when I was around like 10, I really did think like, oh, I'm going to the Olympics, or I'm going to the Olympics 2020. But even though I had that in my mind, I think found out that I couldn't even go because I was a year younger.
Hmm.
It's funny because some guys that went to the trials, I fought and beat, and I was like, man, I think I missed it by like months, by like probably like 8 months. But it was never in my mind to really go to the Olympics because after I was getting done dirty at the nationals, I was like, nah, I ain't going.
I know there's a huge gulf between amateur boxing and professional boxing. Did you know, even as an amateur, that you had kind of like special power in your fist? Did you know it back then?
Yeah, I kind of did because like some dudes I see when I was little, I see they'll beat up everybody at this gym or everybody at that gym, and then when they spar me, like it'll be a different story, and I'll be like, oh, maybe I do have something, not not specifically power, but like I have some other skill set that some of these guys don't have.
I think it's interesting that, even though maybe a boxer tears it up in the amateurs, and even though they box really well, it's a rare occasion when you find someone that has that one punching power. Even though you're early into your career, you've proven that that you have that one
Right.
punching power. You know, where does it come from? And even you're just 19 years old. Do you think like, hey, it still hasn't even hit full weight yet?
Yeah, my dad has heavy fish from like he's telling me that back at his hometown in Mexico that I used to knock guys out, and he's like, man, if they just had to come here to work. But my older brother used to box too, and man, that dude said hella hard. He used to have hella heavy hands. He don't box no more, but and I really didn't develop that until I was like 14. I was more of like, I'm gonna hit you and I'm gonna keep hitting you until you fall. But I think I got my power when I was like 14. Started dropping dudes with body shots and like just stunning dudes. I was like, oh shit. But
A lot of
it really
Yeah, keep
hasn't
going.
really like
Mhm.
I do think that like hasn't I haven't even hit my full man strength. I haven't got my man strength yet. So we'll see how it goes.
I was taking a look at your record, and they have you advertised as a lightweight. Would you say that's your home, or could you see yourself going up, or what would be your ideal weight?
I think lightweight right now, we're gonna campaign at lightweight, probably see what we could do at lightweight. But I think as my body grows and I start getting into my man body and stuff, I think we're gonna campaign at super lightweight 140. Because that's why I used to fight in the amateurs at 141.
This fight that you have coming up in August against Daniel Evangelista Jr. He's campaigned as high as welterweight. He's been in there with some good guys. Do you see this as kind of like the start of like, all right, I'm raising the bar little by little and starting to test yourself and seeing that, hey, this is a guy that could give me some rounds?
Yeah. This is the first like real step up for me, to be honest. That's how I'm seeing it.
Mhm.
So we're training for I mean, if the knockout comes, it comes, but we're not training for that. We're training to just outclass this guy.
Now, this is your third 6 rounder. If you know, how are you kind of seeing gauging the maturation process before you move up to 8 and so on and so on?
Well, we'll be sparring 8, 12 rounds every time we have a sparring session. So like the rounds don't really matter to me. It's just like I do want to go rounds and show people that I'm not just a power puncher. So hopefully this guy will give me some rounds, but if he don't, he don't. But I see this as a big step up for me. Even when I tell people like the guy I'm fighting, they're like, okay, like stepping it up. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing.
The grind of being a professional boxer, I mean, from every professional boxer that I've ever talked to that's ever been successful, it's incredibly difficult. There's a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work that goes into it. Being such a young guy at 19, I mean, you gotta, that's a lot to handle. You're working
Yeah.
a 9 to 5, you got to work in your training, and then you're also a father. How do you balance all of that?
Well, it's really like when I'm working, I'm focused on my work, and then when I'm training, I'm all focused on training. Like I train as hard as possible. When I'm my daughter, just I'm all about her. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I did think when I think about it too much, I'm like, man, how am I handling this? I started like, oh shit, like I'll overwhelm myself. But
Mhm.
I used to take it one thing at a time, one day at a time. Because we're slowly just going up. The rankings slowly just going up the ladder of life, I guess.
Do you work your time in the gym at night or early in the morning, or sometimes a little bit of both?
Sometimes a little bit of both. Sometimes if I can, I get running in the morning, like before I come to work, and then I train 5:30 to 8. It depends if I'm sparring or not.
Hmm.
Because like sometimes sparring come at 6 or like out of
Hmm.
towners come like at yeah. So yeah, it really depends. But I do train at evenings for sure. Sometimes in the morning, if I'm too tired, I'm like yeah, hell no. I run later. I run later at night. But yeah, if I can, I'll do doubles a day.
Do you ever have those moments where, you know, you're done maybe with a hard day of work and you're like, man, I just don't want to go train today?
Nah, I have it. It's like the opposite. It's like man, it's like I don't want to go to work today. I rather man. It's like my body needs to train though. When I
Hmm.
don't train, like if I like let's say after like the fight, I take like a couple of days off. I'm like just sitting there in the house like I ain't got shit to do. Like I want like I'm like I need a box. I need to like hit the bag or something. And like ever since I was 6, every time after school I used to go straight to the gym. So like it's like kind of just like my that's how I grew up, just training every day.
In many ways, do you feel like boxing's a release for you, that no matter what happens in your day, that kind of is your opportunity to kind of get that energy back in the gym and kind of get out any frustrations that you have?
Yeah, that's how I kind of seen it. Because like when I was in like elementary, and kids didn't know that I used to be a boxer, and they would just like they'll say some shit, and I'm like, man, you don't even know what I can do to you, and I'd be like, man, and it's so my mom like this kid said this about me and this and that. She's like, calm down, just take it out in the gym, just take it out in the gym. I'm like, man, yeah, that's how I seen it, and I seen that early. That was like a kind of like a therapy, you know.
Mhm. You've gotten 3 bouts in 2021. This is your 3rd bout in 2022. Um, how much more do you think you could even fit in one more fight in 2022? And kind of what are your like immediate goals for the future?
Well, I feel like we're thinking we're gonna fight again in October, for sure in October. And if the October one goes well, I think we're gonna maybe December. Cause that's how I did it in 20 last year. That's how I did it. I fought August, October, and then December. Well, if we can, because I'm trying to be active. Because like I'm always in the gym, even after I fight. I'm the next day I'm in the gym if I could be. So the immediate plans for the future, some guys are like, oh yeah, they're like they'd be like me, 5-0 or like under 10-0. They'd be like, oh, they're calling out the big dogs. And I'm keeping it realistic. I think we're probably gonna chase for like a international or like a, those a title like that.
Mhm.
Probably late next year. But for right now, we're just gonna stacking up these dubs and keep grinding.
I know that a lot of younger fighters, especially early on in their careers, sometimes they have a hard time finding fights, but it seems like you're doing pretty well. Do you credit that to some of the people that you have around you? And it seems like you have a pretty good network.
Oh, of course. So yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Oscar, my manager, and Coach Marcus, my coach. They really be helping me like that. Because to be honest, when I was an amateur, I was like, oh yeah. Because like when I used to win nationals, I'm like, oh yeah, top rank gonna pick me up right away, or this sniper's gonna pick me up right away. And like when I turned pro, it's just like it's like slowly a grind, you know. Maybe
Mhm.
one day they'll pick me up, but if not, we're just gonna keep racking these dubs. But I just want to give a shout out to Oscar and Coach Marcus. They really be helping me out with that,
Well,
getting me these fights.
it seems like everything is clicking for you right now. I've heard a lot of great things about you, and I look forward to seeing you continue on in the grind and keep it going. Cain, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
taking the time, and I appreciate you, my man.
man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.